Okay, so hello, this is Junior. We're back to another episode of Libertarian and Uncensored podcast. Let's get right into it. Texas sues Biden administration over asylum rule, claims phone app encourages illegal immigration from Haram. That's Friday, from NBCDFW.com. And I'm personally more on the pro-immigration side of the argument, but I definitely think, illegal immigration, especially from the welfare state, you can make an argument that that's anti-liberty as well. So I think that's important to remember. And I do think you need to remember also that um, this phone app could be something that it's new, and we don't really know the long-term effects of what it might be for when it comes to immigration. So I do think this is Texas might have a case here, so that's my fault here. But I don't really care too much for the courts, as I always like to say. Then we have Labor sounds like Tories on immigration, but its policy goes back to its trade union roots, from theconversation.com by Rude My Circle Jerk. And yeah, I would agree with that. The thing is that the British are so... The British, I would say, their Republican Party, the Conservative Party, has compromised on so many values to win elections, and that's why the EU, they're pretty much just like the Democrats over here, I would say. And, even then, the Labour Party still isn't doing too hot. So, yeah, that's my thoughts there. Then we have our Libertarian Censored Votes 2024 Republican Primary, May 24th, 2023 edition. That's for Ron DeSantis and Tim Scott entering the race. Donald Trump has 1 vote. Tim Scott has 1 vote. Nikki Haley has 1 vote. And others got 7 votes. I'm sticking with Ramaswamy. I put him under other, though, because, I really like his anti-woke stuff. But, I do have some problems with him. He does seem to not be too much of an abolitionist, like he says. I personally think we need to abolish the government and maybe splinter it off into multiple governments. That's my fault there. So we'll see how that all plays out. Then we have the Democratic Party poll. And and for Joe Biden has 4 votes, Marianne Williamson has 3 votes, Robert Kennedy Jr. has 3 votes, and Joe Exotic has 4 votes, and Ever has 4 votes. So yeah, it looks like that's all pretty close, so that's exciting, and we'll see how that plays out. Then we have the Libertarian Party poll, and Chase Oliver has 2 votes, Mike Tremad has 1 vote, for Ever has 3 votes, Lars Mapson and Jake Bornberg have no votes, so that's not, that field's still growing, I think. I'm not sure, Smith might enter the field soon. Then we have Heritage Foundation says that, of course, GOP will use Kids Online Safety Act to censor LGBTQ content from TechTrek.com whenever Trump posts. And, yeah, I guess, kids protecting the children is always something the parties want to do. But we'll see how, it can be used to justify some authoritarianism, but I do think to the extent that authoritarianism is justified, if you don't want kids to consent to things like sex and some of the gender-affirming surgeries, if they're like 7. So that's my thoughts there, I think, it should be more up to the parents to keep the kids off of the LGBTQ content than the state, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Texas Senate moves to create new immigration enforcement unit, allows state police to arrest for border crossings, from WFAA.com by Harumph. And as I said earlier, I think I'm more on the open border side, but you do have an argument that you should enforce your borders, but I personally really don't care for them too much, so yeah. We have Florida Governor DeSantis launches his presidential campaign to challenge Trump, from WFAA.com by Harumph. And my thoughts there is I don't think he'll do too well. I think he'll probably get destroyed. I think his campaign is mostly just an online thing, and worse than Trump. I think Trump really has more of the hype behind him. Then we have white Western liberals now believe they are such good and proven allies, trademark, that they have assumed ownership of racism and its discourse. They feel entitled to malign anyone they disagree with as white supremacist, all without any evidence they care at all about non-whites. From Glenn Greenwald, that's my first Greenwald tweet in a while. On here because his husband died, so we took a hiatus. I said, pretty much read in a nutshell, you can also change out white supremacist with Hitler, Nazi, fascist, etc. They'll label you that without a second thought. It doesn't mean, it's like the boy you cried wolf. It doesn't even matter if they label you anymore. It's just lost all meaning completely. We live in a world that increasingly words don't have any meanings. You can just throw them around and no one will care anymore. Arming teachers debated as safety measure across Texas schools from NBCDFW.com by Harumph. And I personally would think, my thoughts are if a teacher wants to arm themselves, they should be able to, but I don't think they should be forced to if they don't want to. So that's my thoughts there. I think, everyone should have arms if they want to. If they don't want to have arms, they shouldn't be forced to do so. So that's my thought on that issue. The stupidity of making porn filters mandatory on mobile devices from TechTruth.com, another Harumph post. And yeah, I'd agree with that. You shouldn't be making filters mandatory on any devices. You should, and if they do, you should always. I think you should just try and jailbreak them. So that's my thoughts there. Then we have remarkable sentence from Hilldog, really says it all, from Dave Smith on Twitter, and I posted that, and it was Hillary Clinton tweeted, Ron DeSantis' ultra MAGA Florida isn't safe for people of color, LGBTQ plus people, or even multi-billion-dollar corporations. And I said, HRC and Dems definitely care more about one of those groups a lot more than the other two. Hint, it's not one of the id poll ones. They really are into the multi-billion-dollar corporations. They love defending. If they see a backlash for what they deem it to be as bigotry, like the backlash against Bud Light or Miller Lite or Target, they'll say, "Oh, we suddenly love multi-billion-dollar corporations." I saw a good tweet on Twitter about that. I'll talk about more about the Target thread we have coming up. But yeah, that's something that's important to remember. So what's the best way to help Americans from being libertarian on Twitter? And I posted that, and was a poll. I voted. What's the best? Vote Trump. That's 17.6%. Vote Biden is 0.8%, vote DeSantis 15.9%, and decent relation 65.7%. I said, you gotta end the cult of the presidency, embrace decentralization, I think we gotta just get rid of this one authoritarian government that you foresee is legitimate, maybe get multiple governments that you can choose to see which one's legitimate and not, and everyone can have their own thoughts on the matter. That's my fault for everyone, everyone should be able to do whatever they want is legitimate and not be forced to, as long as everyone's consenting, I would say. Then we have Dave Sushi in Bozeman, Montana, hoping to reopen this week after following health department approval after killing 2 and sickening dozens from KBZK.com by Frosty Slawman. And I think as long as if the people want to eat there after those deaths, they should be able to. I don't think we should have state regulating if it was apparently about raw mushrooms. And then those were apparently deadly, but if people want to eat raw mushrooms and if they're deadly, they should be able to eat them. Yeah. Under Elon Musk, Twitter has approved 83% of censorship requests by authoritarian governments. The social network has restricted and withdrawn content critical of the ruling parties in Turkey and India, among other countries, including during electoral campaigns from EnglishLPays.com by Clorox. And yeah, I definitely think I definitely think Elon's gotta meet the new boss, same with the old boss. I'd agree there. Then we have social media dependency is linked to a reduced preference for freedom. Study finds from SciPost, and I posted that, and I said, definitely feels like you can see it on Reddit and Twitter. The more you see on social media, the more you want less freedom, I would say, and that's, yeah. New Montana law specifically bans reading in drag at library schools from WFA.com by Harumph. And I personally would disagree with that. I think that's a free expression thing. And I think you should be able to free express yourself however you feel like, even if it's something that I personally disagree with. GOP primary candidates favor military action on Mexican cartels from Reason.com. That's by Ninja Lover. And I definitely think, we shouldn't be justifying military action so suddenly. I'm personally against military action a lot of the time. So I definitely would disagree there. Court officers told jurors not to discuss cases during deliberations. The city, from the city to NYC, from Ninja Lover. I'd agree with that. I would definitely think jurors should be able to discuss whatever they want, so that's my thoughts there. And yes, next we move on to offering no explanation. Osceola County permanently removes multiple books from its school libraries from thefire.org by Skull Whisperer, and I definitely think that's some censorship right there, so that's important, but it might be the age-appropriate push, so that's important to remember as well. Vietnam noodle vendor jailed for 5 years from BBC.com, and that's from Ruin My Circle Jerk. And I definitely don't think you should be jailing people even if for any reason when they're for just selling food, even if it turns out to be deadly. That's my thoughts there. Like just look at the Montana restaurant, I would say, as we talked about earlier. CNN's Lurch to the Center does feel pretty sus from Patam 13. And I definitely think that's kind of, CNN was running articles like digital blackface is wrong the way people use it less than 2 months ago, so I think that's important to remember. It's amazing how anything that's sensed whatever from the official DLC narrative is enough to get you labeled as fascist, Nazi, white supremacist, Hitler, etc., etc. You're not really allowed to dissent at all. So, and then one other guy said, I also had an article called Joe Rogan's use of the M-words for January 6th moment. So, that's another thing to remember. CNN, anything on Reddit that's pretty much left of right of MSNBC is pretty much Stormfront, and that's important to remember. Beware Elon Musk's warped libertarianism from Financial Times. That's an archive link from Flimsy Out 5563. And I definitely think, that the media will consider anything it doesn't like to be libertarian. That's pretty much they consider it like rich people simping. But I think libertarianism is what people want to make of it. That's why I mod this up with Libertarian Uncensored, because I think everyone should be able to define whatever they want of libertarian. If you want to be a libertarian socialist, you should be able to say that. Libertarian communist, libertarian fascist. I think you should be able to consider every libertarian, but I don't think you should force me to view your legitimate libertarians as legitimate if I don't feel like it. Then we have, this is not okay, mother of 11-year-old shot by Indianola police for answers from MississippiToday.org. And that is from Kage blah blah blah. And I definitely think you shouldn't be justified shooting 11-year-olds like that, so I'd agree there. Then we have Bud Lighted. Target is latest to face boycott, calls over for support for the LGBT community from USA Today. And I found this good tweet from Twitter. It's from the user Cassie Wears Heels. Remember, it's okay to loot Target, but not okay to oppose its pride section. The left hates multi-billion-dollar micro corporations except when they pander for wood pull. They shouldn't feel anything about this boycott. They should say, oh, it's the big corporation, it doesn't really matter. But no, since it's marked as bigotry, they care about it, which I think is interesting. Then we have Then we have Love to Death from Stone Toss, and that's a comic about how love wins, says the LGBTQ person, and they have a sign that says "Kill Turf" and a shirt that says "Punch Nazi." So it's just everyone says, "Oh, we're all about loving acceptance," but it's only when you riff the narrative. You can see that kind of on the right as well. I would say the thing is that I would say is the left has shown they can get away with a lot more when it comes to controlling the narrative, and they can say, oh, we're just doing it because it's against bigotry, but when you label 90% of people as bigots, no one really cares anymore. So that's something I think you need to remember. Then we have MTG demands decorum in the House, gets exactly the response you'd expect from archivevideomirror.com by your state officer. Of course, you'll probably just get sneers at or something. I don't really care to watch. Because MTG is just kind of a social media celebrity. Increasingly, politics is just social media celebrities and nothing more. It's pretty much just Hollywood East. The old saying that Washington, D.C. is just Hollywood for ugly people. I don't think it's always been true, but, it's really feeling true these days. As the Republican primary heats up, we'd like to remind you how very little it matters. No matter who you vote for, you get John McCain just with varying personality quirks from LP Louisiana. And I said, preach unity or no more than controlled opposition. And, that's the thing is, John McCain, one guy said, oh, John McCain is way more dignity than any of the current CUP candidates. And I said, John McCain was a huge warmonger. People just forget about it because he wasn't a toxic asshole all the time like Trump. So, it's all the same, control opposition. Society will just continue getting more authoritarian and more left-leaning regardless, I think, and I think that's important to remember. To those who hate monopolies, this is a self-approach for me. Remember that the government is unquestionably the biggest one. What we need is the end of one-size-fits-all government that people are forced to view as legitimate. That's my thoughts on that issue. I think we should. I'm personally of the persuasion that we need multiple governments. That we need, you can choose which one's legitimate. If each person can choose which one's legitimate, if they feel like it. And, if someone doesn't want to feel any of them legitimate, they shouldn't be forced to do so as long as they don't violate NAP. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Who is running for president in 2024? See full list of candidates from NBCDFW.com by Harumph. And, Yeah, apparently it's just the R and the D candidates. I mean, the article goes carrying the candidates for the Libertarian Party, Green Party candidate Howie Hawkins during declared independence, typical mainstream news behavior. I agree with that, yeah. So next we have Georgia GOP Chair Candace Taylor says globes are anti-flat earth brainwashing. And, look, and another GOP group, both sides though, am I right, was one of the comments. Look up Hank Johnson's thoughts on Guam, stupid, but it's regardless of political affiliation, I would say. So that's my thoughts there. You just got people say, "Oh, everyone's an idiot. Everyone's or who disagrees with me is an idiot." But I think everyone's an idiot to some extent, especially and social media really shows you that. Everyone has their own share of moronic takes, I would say. Then we have Lauren Boebert's son called 911 in tears to report his father was throwing him around the house. Then she took the phone. So of course, that's kind of just Lauren Boebert celebrity stuff. I would say, it's from BusinessInsider.com. It's by Kage, blah, blah, blah. Then we have Florida is in full transition to Nazi state from Politics First, and it's a link from Kage, blah, 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 to the White People to the post from Politics First tweet on the White People Twitter subreddit. And it says, watch, SB 1316 is a bill that is being proposed which requires bloggers who speak out against Florida or its government has to register with the state or be subject to a fine. And this is literal unconstitutional. Of course, I agree with that. But and it looks like it died in committee. And, yeah. Yeah. And I like this one guy's comment. Both sides mean they're saying that no matter how bad Republicans become, and they are staggeringly bad, the Democrats are still the same authoritarians they've always been. They only look better by comparison. I say glad at least someone here gets it. The thing is that this stuff is just, it's just theater. When the Democrats censor content, it's always the worst. It's always, we're swept under the rug. But when Republicans try to do it, it's always the worst thing ever. So that's my thoughts there. Contradiction of Capitalism by Chi-Town's next. That's a post from the r/Chomsky subreddit. And yeah, so yeah, so I guess, that capitalism, I think it's personally, I'm not the biggest fan of capitalism for a libertarian, I would say. I think it does lead to unjust hierarchies, but, suffering is going to be inevitable regardless of what system you use. I think that's important to remember. Cops will still smoke for weed in Maryland from Reason is next. It's not the title of the article, but I just wrote that as the title of the article, and it said, again, it matters more who enforces the laws rather than who makes them. The legislators aren't going out to enforce the laws, and that's why even if they do make marijuana illegal, the cops might still enforce punishment for smelling it. This is what happens when Republicans lure libertarians. I finally joined the club by Labor Friendly that's about their ban from Libertarian subreddit. So, yeah, I guess, I'm personally more anti-censorship, so I guess that they should have the right to share that if they want to. Then we have, in the 1830s, Thomas Cole did a series of paintings in which he portrays the U.S. as about to collapse. Somehow it still doesn't come to pass. And I said, it may feel like we are in the end times, but people almost always think that. So 10 years from now, it'll be like, 2023 was, these were good times, and then 10 years from now, after that, it'll be, 2033 was good times, it's always gonna be 10 years ago was the good times, now is the bad times, but, that's the thing, it's, it's a lot of things, it's hype more than anything else, and you need to remember that, people are always gonna fearmonger about how bad things are, and how much worse they're going to get, but, we'll continue on regardless, and I think that's an important lesson that people need to learn, especially in the age of social media. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.